All right, I was just watching the StreamYard button. I pushed go live and just spun and spun and spun. Maybe something to work on there for them. Welcome everyone to our webinar today. We'll be diving into ways that brands can increase customer loyalty and lifetime value in the increasingly complex environment that we are in 2026. Macroeconomic factors sort of excluded in this conversation. Want to welcome everybody. We'll get started in a couple minutes as folks join into the stream, but I wanted to bring onto the stage James Shutrop, who is the CEO of Scribe, handwritten note service provider. Maybe you could do a better description of it, James, but helping e-commerce merchants deliver sort of wow moments to their customers in a more organic, personalized way. James, great to have you. Welcome.
I appreciate you having me on. Excited to talk some shop here.
Yeah, and I always love being cross time zones. I think the last webinar we had was somebody was based in Greece, and we've had ones for people in Australia, like we were talking in different days. This is just 1 hour. You're based in Minnesota, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. People, obviously right now, Minnesota, Minneapolis, one of the most famous states, although we're always kind of teased for being the flyover state. But on the topic of being the flyover state, it's a great place to have a handwritten note company, that does direct mail, because we're right in the middle. We can get to every end of the country pretty easy and, get handwritten letters out to your customers in a timely manner. So
yeah, strategically placed logistics. It's definitely something that I bet it's nice up there too. I mean, this time of year, once you guys start getting out of the winter and into spring, summer, I had clients in my agency days that lived in the UP in Michigan, and it's like the most beautiful place in the world for those couple of months before it gets too cold again. But I imagine it's nice up there for you. So
it's amazing. It's a little chilly right now. I mean, you get big swings. We've already had multiple 80-degree days, and I think one day was like close to 90. And then the last few days it's been, like 35. So pretty crazy swing. But I used to live in San Diego. And, a lot of people agree that's probably the best weather that you can get, within the United States. And I actually do like the summers here better, and here better in general. And the reason being, I always describe, the Midwest in general. It's kind of like, with a hot tub. If you're sitting in a hot tub for 3 hours, it no longer feels good, right? You're desensitized, doesn't feel great. That's kind of what it's like living in a place that's nice all the time. Whereas, being in the Midwest, it's kind of like being in a hot tub in the mountains in Vail, where it's like you got some snow next to you, you're jumping in and out, you can have a good time with your friends at night, because, it's all relative. You need a little pleasure and pain to feel the pleasure. Otherwise, you just get desensitized. So it's nice here.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. Here in the South, you just wait 2 days if you don't like the weather, and you will have something completely different. So, well, we can go ahead and get started. We spoke a few weeks back when I was introed to you through a contact that we share, and I think we really hit it off around this topic of, the challenge for brands to build customer loyalty, which I would put in like a square brackets, is really kind of a lifetime value concern more than it is like, I just kind of, they just like me, right? Like, how do people do this when it's so competitive? It's marketplaces are flooded with, in some cases, like your exact product. It feels like the social media networks are out to serve your competitors' ads directly to your newly won customer immediately with their lookalikes and different targeting methods. And I felt like we were really on the same page, and that's what prompted like this idea of like, we should, talk about this, not from a, hey, you should just do handwritten notes, and like, this is a great way to prop up what you guys are, which is actually genuinely really, really cool. But like trying to break down more of that mindset of like, how are brands thinking about that challenge? And I think you said it best, right? You highlighted the Michael Scott quote from The Office, and maybe I'll give you a chance to chime in here. But what sort of drove you to this area of like customer lifetime value, customer loyalty? What got you into this world? And then we'll dive into some, questions that we put together.
Yeah, great question. So my first business was actually a home service business, and we were very, very diligent on writing handwritten notes to every single customer. Because at the end of the day, whether it's home service, whether it's e-commerce, it's cheaper to keep a customer than to get a new one, right? And we can send them a million emails and a million texts, and that stuff works. It's inexpensive. But I go back to this overall principle that's kind of worked since, the 80s across all businesses. And that's when someone that works with you has this wow moment where they go, wow, I pay $1,000 a night at the Marriott, and I don't even have this type of customer service or experience with that company versus this e-commerce brand I just bought skincare products from, or this carpet cleaning company, or my financial planner, whatever. The people who, you could be Chick-fil-A, right? You could be a fast food place. When you give a customer that wow experience, it trains them to crave your communication moving forward. It builds a moat around the actual loyalty. They don't want to go to other people because they have a tie to not just your brand, but more importantly, like the people within your brand, because you've really humanized it. So I saw the power of handwritten notes and overall the importance of that principle in my first business, which I had sold. And then after that, I had an e-commerce company. And, similar to, any e-commerce company that's watching this, we had actually one email flow that was driving 50% of the revenue for the whole company, both on the top of funnel, middle and bottom side of things. And I simply looked at that 1% or that email flow with a 1% conversion rate and said, man, if we can get that to 2%, since that makes up that much of our revenue, we are going to be able to double the actual profit of our company, essentially. And knowing the power of handwritten letters, I said, perfect. I want to basically set up an email automation that triggers out handwritten letters. And, at the time I found out that solution didn't exist. I called around to, the manufacturers of, different robots that existed, even current competitors that we have at the time, and said, here's my use case. I want Klaviyo automation, but I want it with handwritten letters. And they said, this isn't really built for that. It's like, hey, you want to send 1,000 letters to a neighborhood and, do a mail merge and send to a bulk list, you can do that. But if you're sending one-offs and you're triggering them, similar to email automation, there's setup fees and press fees and all these different things. So we, at that point, basically, I put everything, into Scribe in that solution. We figured out a way from a manufacturing standpoint, from a software standpoint, from, kind of jailbreaking the USPS's software to allow us to do these types of things. Created a system that's really just apples to apples with email automation, but it sends out a handwritten letter with the goal essentially of, implementing this into automated communication to make humanized communication and implementing that wow factor to, the top end of the customer life cycle, achievable, because really it wasn't achievable unless you want to have a bunch of people writing out notes, or, you're like Sweetwater, which I think it's great they do this, but they literally have someone call every single person, regardless of their purchase size. So sorry, long answer to that, but that's kind of the journey that led us into Scribe. And, overall, we'll dive into the different components of this, but it really comes down to, and, we've worked with thousands of companies, people that humanize their brand, humanize their communication, the tone of their copy, even outside of things like handwritten letters or phone calls, and create that wow factor, are the ones that win. And there's a few other key high level things, and then also micro level tactics as far as how you can implement these principles. But that's the general idea. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the cool approach that you guys have as a mission is like a lot of notes-based, mail-based companies. It requires a level of scale, right? But a lot of small brands, I mean, we buy from small brands all the time in our household. Maybe not always me personally, but I see lots of packages show up from small brands in our house. But a lot of times they do include like, hey, I've got this is our family, this is our business, this is what we're trying to do. They lean into that like personal relationship, but then over time, as things scale, they kind of drop it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to pick back up without, like, I'm just messaging everybody the same thing, high volumes. It's really, really expensive. And I think it's a cool sweet spot. And it's something that we try to even do at Reversion with, like, all of our sort of shameless plug before we move into like some of the more like industry based of the conversation. But almost all of our great reviews on Shopify are, the customer service team is great. Like, it's just easy to use. Whenever I need help, I get the help that I need. And we're a SaaS. We want it to be so easy you don't need support. But like, hey, people like having that person there, knowing that there's an actual person there, and trying to lean into that, I think is a great way to differentiate. Maybe sort of jumping into more of the meat of the conversation. It's so easy to create a brand and create a store these days. Shopify made it super, super easy. Everybody's sort of tagging along as well. And you've got AI-based
Everybody's
tools.
a drop shipper.
Easy. Yeah, it's super easy to create a brand, but there's so many competitive products. There's so many alternative solutions or similar solutions. Like, what, in your opinion, sort of like drives people to be, and maybe we've already alluded, but like, what drives brand loyalty to a small mom and pop D2C versus, I could just buy this on Amazon, or like something similar on Amazon for maybe less and get it shipped faster? Like, what's kind of the motive, and like that you see, like, this is why leaning into SMBs in the e-com space just makes a lot of sense, because people are wanting to be brand loyal. But like, what kind of prompts that in your opinion?
Yeah. So, I think part of the answer is in the question there, in the sense where, people often look at it as, well, how do I do this as a small brand? How do I do this as a large brand? Right. And, really, the companies that are the largest and do the best from a retention standpoint are actually acting like small businesses, which is very, very interesting. And what that actually looks like, and I kind of touched on this, is, people support people, not brands at the end of the day. Brand recognition is the destination, but it's not the brand recognition isn't the road to get to it. It's building a relationship with those people. One thing at my e-commerce company, which allowed us to do very well, even from an email marketing standpoint, was, kind of our rule was, any email that we send, other than a receipt, needs to sound like it was actually written by somebody, right? So we sold an online certification, actually. And instead of saying, we saw that you didn't complete your course, jump in right now and complete your course and use this discount code, for the next 24 hours to actually complete the purchase of the certification. It was, hey, this is John. So sorry, I know this is a little blue. I saw you took my class last Tuesday, but I saw that you didn't go through and complete the actual certification. Did you have any questions on the actual, certification laws within your state or anything like that? These are automated emails, right? But the whole point is, like, we want them to feel like there's someone across the keyboard in the warehouse writing the letter. If you're using ringless voicemails even, or something like that, that someone is reaching out to them one-to-one and they're not asking for something. So, I think that's another thing too, is, the companies that don't do well from a retention standpoint, one, it sounds like brand, it sounds like it's coming from the company. It doesn't sound like it's coming from a person. So it's not speaking to the integrity of the team, right? But then also it's sell. So we always, follow a principle, and brands that do best follow a principle called give, get. So before you actually ask for something, you should be doing 2 customer service touch points where you're not asking for anything, right? It's just, hey, did you get that? How does it look? Hey, it's been, 2 weeks or so. Figured you've been able to actually try the protein powder. How's it mixing up for you? And once again, the tonality and all of that sounds like it's from a human. I'm not saying completely rebuild all of your marketing campaigns. It's fine to have some that are branded, but I've seen a lot of power stripping out the logos, the product photos, the, large PDF graphics that get embedded into emails. Because as soon as someone sees that, they're not deciding if they like the content on it. What they're deciding is, do I want to be sold right now? And usually the answer is no. But when they feel like someone actually reached out to them, they feel an obligation to get back to them. And de facto, when your bottom line is treating your customers right, what that says is that the people at the top are instilling the correct integrity, right? And you can then have the opportunity to tell them why you're grateful, right? We're a family business. We really take pride in this. We really believe in ancestral living, or this thing that we both resonate on, right? If you were like an ancestral supplement company or something. So then you can make that connection, and that humanization is really what you see a lot of mom and pop shops doing. But the brands that really kill it are the ones that don't make excuses once they start getting to scale and going, well, we're too big for that now, right? Or, a big part of it is timing. So often people only reward their high LTV customers. People have done multi-orders, their hero customers, things like that. And really, most loyalty programs are built backwards, and small businesses, especially ones with like older founders, do this really, really well because they get old school customer service. So usually loyalty programs are about, oh man, they didn't subscribe. Now we're going to bombard them with sales touch points. Oh man, they haven't ordered from us in this long. Now we're going to, send them something, handwritten letter even, to try and win them back. Right. And customer service in general, and, with handwritten letters too, this customer business relationship, it's really like a marriage at the end of the day. So handwritten letters are like flowers within this analogy, right? If you're giving flowers to your wife, on a Saturday morning when she's not expecting it, out of the kindness of your heart, or, you're starting these things early on in your marriage, you're going to have a great marriage, right? Now, what doesn't work great is, man, we just got in a huge fight. I'm going to go to the flower shop. I'm going to grab her some flowers, and I'm going to try and win her back, right? So really, you need to be putting all of these touch points as early into the customer life cycle as possible, so you can invoke that wow factor. The momentum, kind of, if you imagine like you're spinning the propeller of a plane that has to get manually started. If you hit the ignition once the propeller stops spinning, you're not going to get off the runway. Right. So while that momentum's going, you got to invoke that wow factor. Do it early on. Do it in a humanized way. Don't ask for anything. And that's really what we've seen, when doing that just with handwritten letters at the right touch point, just hitting new customers with that, an 11 to 27% increase in LTV. And that's why, brands like Chewy, for example, huge company, they diligently work on this wow factor, regardless of the fact they're a multi-billion-dollar company. And that's why they spend over $10 million a year sending out handwritten letters and doing it in really unique segments that don't have sales call actions at all.
Yeah, I think like some of a takeaway for me, and like one of the things I think people, like why people like buying from these small brands, is often you let your personality show. You're like, I am an individual. I'm just going to be myself, right? Like we've also seen it when people are like trying to be inauthentically human. It's like, this is not who you are. This is like phony, not interested. Even though like suddenly now you're trying to lean into this, like, I'm not interested. But the more that brands can lean into the personality, lean into the people, lean into themselves, like this is why you bought from me in the first place, I think it actually makes it a whole lot easier to do messaging on any medium, right? Keeping people engaged becomes much more of a conversational, like, this is why I want you to stay engaged. This is my motivation for being here, for letting you know. Maybe harder to replicate at scale, like if you're like, oh, well, I'm not super creative or whatnot, but it can take sort of different forms anyway. It's just, I think, really realizing that, people like the experience that they had buying from me. This is, why local businesses continue to stay in business. Like they just had a great interaction. I get what the vibe is here. I get, why this is what it is. And, that's why I'm going to keep on coming back, because I could, buy this from anywhere, but I just like this. I want to support what you're doing, what your motivation is. That to me is why, there's never going to be any shortage of smaller emerging brands. And I think you hit the nail on the head that the large brands that treat it the same way are the ones that tend to stick around and stay relevant, I think.
And spend less on Meta too.
Yeah, they spend less on ads. They focus much more on these channels that are actually free. I think it's interesting. we sometimes fall into that trap too. Like when customer acquisition gets hard, you tend to just only focus on customer acquisition even more to try to figure it out. And you can let like that sort of customer advocacy, that retention, that lifetime value, that loyalty, you let it slide because it feels like, well, it's, I've got to get more customers, but
I'd rather put that money into more ads,
yeah,
or
but it can like sort of
years ago.
work backwards, right? Like you start to erode those customers because you're trying to fill in with more, you're only going to see things drop further. And so when things are harder on the acquisition side, it feels like it's more of an opportunity to like, let me lean much more into to retaining my customers, like trying to drive loyalty, trying to show them like, hey, we're trying to do this. We'd love to get your perspective. Because if your existing customers are saying that, yeah, this is great, I love this, this is an awesome new product, it makes it easier to actually sell to new people, right? Like, okay, I've re-cracked the code on this, my customer. And so like it just make yeses are easier to drive more yeses, right? Having more no's on the front door, and then you neglect the people that are already here, they're just going to walk out the back door, and then you just continue to see these like no's and these departures happen. And so I think that there's definitely this call to lean over. I'm not really sure why people don't do it. Maybe because it feels like we've already earned them. But I see it across businesses of all sizes and across all industries. And you used to even see it back in agency days. I used to see it at my last company when it came to like recruiting influencers, be a part of your program. Like you become so obsessed with just the new thing. And overall, like everything begins to shrink because you're letting stuff leave by not paying any attention to it. And those people feel it. I don't know if you've observed any other reasons. It's like why SMBs is just like they don't have that mindset of like, I've won this customer, I want to keep them, I want them to love buying from me. Is there any other thought that you have on that front?
Yeah, I got a couple. One, I see a difference, and I talked about this earlier, but older founders, businesses that used to be brick and mortar and then went online, take those same customer service principles they had when actually looking, face to face with a customer, and they start implementing those online. Whereas people that started in the e-commerce world typically view their customers as numbers. And truthfully, since they're always trying to give me, and they're never giving, following that principle properly, they've never actually got signal from the customer loyalty that they've done. So of course, since they haven't got that dopamine hit before, they're like, well, we're going to send more promos and try and get our customers that have done over 3 orders on subscription, which at that point, it's just a no-brainer. It makes sense. But really, the whole point is with a loyalty program, it should be the people that are your highest segment LTV, regardless of what you do, they love your product. They're going to be there, honestly. Like you already have them in the bag. It's getting the people that have ordered one time to order 2, 3, 4 times and actually build that relationship. So I think that people focus actually too much on their hero segment with loyalty programs. I hear this all the time with handwritten letters, like, well, maybe we'll send this to our customers that have ordered like 6 or 7 times. And I'm like, they're going to order 10 or 12. Just give them more time. Like, don't even send anything. Like the whole point of this is you're giving a wow experience to someone right when you're trying to form what they think about your brand. So you need to do those things early on. But yeah, I would just say the biggest thing is like, why psychologically does that happen with certain brands and not others? You see those like companies that, Sweetwater, Duluth Trading Co., Cozy Earth, like these companies that have had a presence in person and a background in brick and mortar, take those principles into e-com. They've never viewed their customers as numbers because they've always seen them in flesh and blood. And the unfortunate thing with e-commerce companies that, that was their first introduction to selling direct to consumer is they look at people as numbers, and you need to stop doing that and think about their emotions. You can definitely sometimes overanalyze the spreadsheet. I'm not saying don't analyze, right? You need to, but like at the end of the day, if your funnel is broken, you're going to look at the part of the broken funnel, or where the lowest conversion rate is in the funnel. You're not going to go, all right, our landing page is converting at 10%. Let's get it to 12%. That's the equivalent of like trying to push loyalty already on a part of your base that is loyal. So
Yeah.
you need to focus on the part of the base that isn't, and you need to use humanized communication to do that. Whether it's a phone call, a handwritten letter, a ringless voicemail, tagging them in a social media post, which I can kind of get into. It's a cool new strategy. But if you can collect socials, even like posting like their package in the warehouse, tagging them in it, they repost it, then their friends buy too. Like it's a fun, humanized experience, right? So there's a lot of ways you
Yeah.
can do it, not just handwritten letters.
Yeah. I mean, the human experience that like a store has, right? They see the joy on somebody's face when they buy the product or they find the thing that they were looking for. They're, I worked retail at a soccer store. I worked retail at a wine store. Like you just, they come back like that was such a great recommendation. This has been awesome. These shoes fit great. This has been awesome. I think the brands that like I just would describe them. This is not a term that I coined, but I would describe it just like socially native brands. They lean into like we were born on getting this product in front of people on social media and seeing them with the product on social media and encouraging them to do that. Those do seem like ones where they're like they have that hit of like I just want to see more people doing this. It's just so cool to see, and it's the brands that maybe were later adopting of social media and like trying to force their way in is where it's this disconnect of we're just looking more at numbers and results and like these are soft metrics. I don't care about these soft metrics. But when you take away soft metrics like high engagement rate, high visibility, high shares, impressions, like eventually clicks will go away, sales will go away. It's like those soft metrics can be indicative of other things that are happening. There are concrete metrics there as well. There's ways to track things like this, but that I think that you're on to something there where it's like when you prioritize that customer experience, like the reason I got into this is because I like to deliver kids' birthday party supplies to them on time. Mom's not stressed, dad's not stressed. It's on the theme that they want. And I just love seeing those emails, even if you're not a brick and mortar, it's like, but if you're sort of built off of that philosophy, it's so easy to just do these things because it's natural. And maybe folks that have been around for a long time, pre-social network, sort of like as the core driver of the business, that's where it just becomes a little bit more difficult. Like, oh, I was just a nameless, faceless organization that sold, I don't know, mugs or knives or whatever. Now I need to adopt this social thing and I don't really get it. And it's like, well, if you don't really get it, like it's going to be kind of hard to figure it out. And that's probably best when it's like, yeah, you need a marketer that is all in on this idea, right? Like the woman that blew Duolingo up a few years back with like just embedding her personality into the app. Huge.
Well, and the big risk for a marketing director too. Like it's one thing for a founder to go, I have a vision for this. I have an ethos for how we're going to run and market this company. And it's a whole other thing for a marketing director to stick their neck out and do that and say, hey, we're going to do this thing, which is a little bit more soft signal, but these, clicks, CPMs, all these things go up and down. We can do the same thing everyone else does, but let's implement a strategy that's going to take us 12 months to win on or even measure with a goal of winning, 10 years, 20 years down the road. It's kind of like Japan. They talk about like in Japan, when they build a business, they build 100-year business plans, right? And most e-commerce companies are building like monthly business plans essentially, which cuts you off from a lot of these things that are extremely valuable but have soft signal. And the analogy I like to use for this is, the Ritz-Carlton, the reputation obviously speaks for itself. There's been countless, books basically like almost primarily written on like what they do to build customer loyalty. And do you think, like honest question, do you think that the CFO of the Ritz-Carlton is in a meeting going, all right, we're going to try this whole dropping off cookies at someone's room thing. We're going to give it 30 days. We're going to measure the metrics. And if we're not seeing signal on that, we're going to stop doing it. Right. A lot of brands do that. That's
maybe I'd argue that probably all the CFOs are still doing that, but the CEOs, the CMOs are saying like, listen, give me this, earmark me some special budget because I'm going to do whatever I want with this budget. Because the way CFOs tend to be wired, beg forgiveness from all of our CFO.
Yeah,
friends.
I'm sure that I don't even know who the current CFO is at Ritz Carlton, right? So I'm sure that the marketing people, or really it would be more of the operations people, because those are the ones in charge of hospitality. But same thing, they're in person treating someone well, marketing people for e-commerce, in charge of loyalty, right?
Yeah.
They are going, hey, we understand that doing this is going to mean that over a 10-year period, this person will hopefully be doing a vacation with us every year, every other year, right? But, the signal on that is, there's a lot of delayed gratification in that. And even with handwritten letters, like I tell people, like, hey, if you're going to test sending out handwritten letters for 1 month to all your new customers, just don't do it, because you're not actually committing to a brand ethos of customer service and giving everyone that wow factor. And, depending on your product, right, it might be something where, like, if you're selling bedding, like, or a company like Cozy Earth, like, it's not a subscription based thing. So you don't even really have a monthly signal. Like, people might be ordering once a year, twice a year, before holidays. It might be whenever they get a new kid, they're have a new kid, they're buying a bunch of stuff, right? And then there's, signals that are quicker, right? But at the end of the day, like, what we've seen is when you take a sample size of 50,000 customers and you send them a handwritten letter that are new customers, right? And you have another sample size of 50K and they don't get anything. You see the sample size of 50K that gets the handwritten letter over a 12-month period raised by 12 to 27%, right? So if you're just looking for quick signal all the time and not just looking at the fact that, like, all right, doing this stuff has worked since the 80s across all industries. Yeah, it's nice to have case studies and data on that, and it's all there and exists. But at the end of the day, like, I just need to decide as a business, as a founder, like, am I going all in on humanizing the brand? Am I going all in on changing the tonality of how we talk to our customers so the emails don't sound automated? Am I going all in on, we need to, regardless of what it is, find one touch point at the very beginning of the customer life cycle that literally stops them in their tracks and makes them go, wow, I'm not used to receiving this level of service from any business, that I transact with across industries. This is a business that I want to support. This is a business I want to refer and be an evangelist of. And those are the companies that win, are the ones that show.
Yeah, I think when it comes to measurement, and maybe, so after this, we can shift to sort of like a rapid fire. What are your favorite ways that you have seen brands or drive customer loyalty and lifetime value? But I always like to recommend to folks, like, try to treat some of these interactions logically, right? Who is met with warm chocolate chip cookies on the bed at the Ritz-Carlton and thinking, I bet people really just don't like this? It's like, no, logically, this is a great experience. This is great for people. Now, if I said, I left a note there and all they have to do is request them and then we will bake them to order and this is going to save us money, yeah, that might not be super impactful because you're suddenly creating all of this work. But a lot of immeasurable things or soft metric things that you cut off and then you see, like, declining value over time. When you look at it logically, it's like, this is a positive interaction. There's no way this is not valuable. Now, like, if it comes to, like, influencer marketing, for example, something that I'm exposed to past 4 years or whatever, yeah, you can invest really big with a huge audience and see nothing. But a lot of times you could dig a little bit deeper and you go, oh, this is, like, not even my core audience. And the way that they delivered this was hard. It wasn't easy to see. It was unnatural. But anytime something that's more loose in measurement because of the way attribution is, but you're like, this is just us. This is what we're trying to do. Almost always it provides that lifetime value that you're looking for. Now, you want to manage how all in you go on those investments. But I think going back to what we were talking about before, brands tend to get away from it because they don't see the directly measurable impact. Well, the new customers we give cookies to aren't visiting us any more often than people that we don't give cookies to or that have been with us for years and years and years. It's like, yeah, that's not a real indicator. That's actually an illogical argument. But if we think about this as humans, it's easy to be like, yeah, this is good. We could probably improve this, and this is doing nothing because it sort of fails the test, right? Yeah. Which flavor of cookie probably makes a little bit less of a difference, right? Like, you're obsessing with the long details. So hard pivot maybe in the couple minutes we have left. I'll start just because I don't want you to steal the one that I have.
Okay.
But let's go sort of rapid fire. Favorite things e-commerce brands can do to increase LTV, to increase customer loyalty. I'm going to go for more personal experience. My favorite thing in the world, like if we're buying from a small brand, my son has first communion coming up, and we buy him things for first communion.
Mhm.
Getting a sticker that I did not order with my package. It's not a branded sticker. I don't want a branded sticker.
Oh, branded. Okay, never
No,
mind.
I don't even want a brand sticker. I want like give me a relevant, like this is topically relevant to what I'm doing. It's not in your face branded. Like it can have a logo on it. It can have a name on it. But it's like, if you're interested in this, we just put this in here because you're buying something for first communion. You probably want this sticker. It's got Mary on it or whatever. Or it's like, yeah, I'm going to put this somewhere. And then when people are like, oh, that's a cool sticker. It's like, yeah, it's awesome. This company just sent it to me. It wasn't even what I bought. It costs pennies to do really clever, on brand, full of personality stickers. They could just be thrown in the box, right? Like it's just a thing. It's like, I'm just doing it. I want people to sort of get a little bit more than just the thing that they ordered. That's one of my favorite things that I think brands do, that you just remember when you buy from that brand. Now, is it disappointing the next time you get an order, you don't get like that thing? Yeah, a little bit. But I know it sounds sort of like,
well, if every day is Christmas, no day is Christmas.
yeah,
There has to be a little bit of like, take it away, give it back. Oh, I got it back. Yes.
Yeah, like I'm not saying, like, I don't love it when you buy a new MacBook and Apple's like, here's our Apple sticker to go stick on your car. Like, I'm not doing that, but they could get clever with it. I remember, I'll let you jump in on your thing, but a couple companies ago, we were trying to reach cybersecurity analysts who are notoriously hard to do marketing and sales to. And one of the things that we used to try, and the team was like, do we really need to do this? Was we would just send this list of CISOs cybersecurity memes as postcards in the mail with no call to action, just funny cybersecurity memes. Just the goal was, we just want them to laugh. We want them to realize, like, we get it. And we just want to sort of stay in front of you, but not in a brand heavy way, just more of a, like, we get it. And actually for that audience, it's like, it's kind of what they want. So it's like little things.
Turning a prospect into a peer too, which is really
I mean, security. There's lots of spaces where it's like marketing and sales are the last people they want to talk to, because we will say yes to everything all the time. They want to know that you get the problem.
Well, I like your caveat about the stickers not being branded as well. That's interesting. So I'm a big fan of Heart and Soil. They're a customer of ours at Scribe. If you guys aren't familiar, if you're familiar with Paul Saladino,
okay,
like founder's more popular, he's kind of invented the animal-based diet, ancestral living, eat a lot of fruit, whole foods, grass-fed meat, things like that. The first package, they sent me some branded stickers. And the second one that I actually got in yesterday, it had some stickers on it, or that came in there, that were more vague. Like, I think there was a little like Heart and Soil thing in the bottom, but it's kind of like taglines for like, hey, here's what we believe in, right? It's like, eat right, eat healthy, eat, natural. And like that allows you to bring the brand into your identity, really, which I think is key, because then you feel like you're a part of this tribe and you're all sharing the same message and mission. And kind of going back to that humanization of the brand, it's not like, I like Heart and Soil. It's like, I like the people here. I like how they treat me. I like their customer service. I like that they call me and they ask like how the dosage of the supplements is working, right? I think that's a really, really good point. I guess I'll share some of my favorite ways to increase LTV. And some of them, truthfully, might be a little underwhelming, because I think people really are always looking for this, like, this hack, right? If I segment this audience and, I do this many touch points in this funnel, this is going to do this thing, right? And this is kind of what I'm talking about with like unsophisticated people coming from brick and mortar, going into e-commerce and crushing people that just aren't humanizing. And it just really comes down to how can I make that, give someone that wow experience? And I've talked about Sweetwater a couple of times. I would say what they do specifically is the most simple and my favorite way of doing it. And it's not what we do at Scribe, but it's really hard to implement. But if you can do it, this is great. So they're like a 1.4, $1.9 billion company. If you're not familiar, they sell every single type of instrument you could ever buy. If you're a musician, like that's where you should be buying your stuff. And like I was talking about with, hey, don't just bloat your hero customers, but like every customer, especially early on, should be treated like they're going to be your hero customer. So they call every single person who puts in an order. And even if it's just drumsticks, right? Like they'll call them and they don't ask for anything. They don't promote anything. They're just like, hey, like, how are you liking everything? Like, did you need any extra cords? Like, are the cords long enough for your keyboard or for whatever it is? And they're doing that on an order that is not profitable to, in theory, be doing that, right? But they know that it works because they know that when they do that, like when I got that call, I was shocked. And this was even before I started Scribe. I was like, what? Like, I don't order anything from anywhere else, right? And they're doing some of the order drumsticks because they know that person someday is going to spend, over $1,000 on a drum set, maybe $5,000. At some point, they're like, maybe I want to play around with the guitar. I'm going to do that. At some point, they're going to be like, I want to get into recording. So they're going to buy more stuff there. And they know that they actually have someone they can reach out to if they have additional questions, even though they can figure out most of the stuff themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that is like my favorite thing that I've seen done. Chewy has a really cool touch point, which is not where you should start with handwritten letters. Like you should start with new customers, get a thank you to make them basically do what Sweetwater does, but just do it in a handwritten letter. It's more scalable. But Chewy, they're playing long game. They're like a Japanese business basically. So not only do they know that like, hey, if we treat people right and send them a handwritten letter right away, we're going to get these people to get on the subscription, order dog food for the whole entire dog's life, 10 years, right? But they want the next 10 years. They want the next 10 years after that. They want 30-year, retention. So when a dog passes away, they have the dogs, they basically know because a subscription gets canceled, and that's a reason for the subscription being canceled. And they will then send a condolences letter basically and give months of free dog food to the next dog that they purchase, because people always purchase new dogs, right? So that one's really, really interesting. And then, for most e-commerce companies, this doesn't make a ton of sense. But like when we work in even like the insurance space, like we always have people's birthdays. So like sending birthday cards is huge. Like this is one of those gives where you're not asking for anything. Same thing with the dog's birthday with Chewy. You're not asking for anything. It's just like, cool, they purchased. We're going to thank them. We're going to send the dog a birthday letter. And then boom, we're going to cross-sell them products, on that third touch. They're following that balance of give, basically, which is super, super key. So
the story,
it's great.
So I had a birthday back in March. Every year for the past 4 or 5 years, the first birthday card I get is from Dent Dominator, who is a local dent repair guy. Every year, without fail, it's the first birthday letter I get, and it's like the first year is just like, this is so random, and then the second year is like, this is so funny, and then the third year is just like, this is awesome. Like I love that I get this. I did not get one this year, and I was bummed. Like we have new dents in our car. Maybe I just need to bring it in. But it was a thing where it's like he wrote them himself, he sent them himself, he stamped them himself. Like I'm sure it's a lot of work, super immeasurable. But like anytime I'm gonna need to get, and I've got 3 kids, and we've got neighbors that are kids, lots of dents. I'm going to take the cart to him. And I was like supremely bummed when I didn't get it. Probably something happened.
Yeah, you'll probably get into a friend's car and see a dent and be like, you got to go to this detonator guy.
Yeah, this is the guy that I go to because our kids are always destroying our vehicles.
Yeah.
My last one, I think it's underrated to suggest like relevant complementary things. Like a lot of times when people are shopping, like you talked about musicians, right? If you're an earlier musician, you're going to be scouring all the time, talking to all your musician friends. Like, what else should I be thinking about, right? Like, what gauge chords would make it easier for me to be able to play this guitar as I'm getting started? Like, what should I be doing?
Yeah.
And brands often can fail with their recommendations because the recommendations are just kind of like, it's not that being
It's a
programmatic
graphic
or it's
PDF
bad.
that says people also bought this, and it's like,
Yeah, and it's just not relevant, right? It's just like, yeah, people that bought this guitar also bought that guitar. Well, I just bought a guitar. I'm not going to buy another guitar. But when you say like, hey, new guitarists, after they bought their first guitar, also really enjoy this, gets great reviews. It's truly complimentary, right? It's a fraction of the price of what you purchased before. It goes along with the thing. I mean, this is why bundling, especially for Shopify stores, works so well. It's just like, these are things that you should be getting together. It's beneficial to do that. And I think when brands are doing these suggestions, whether it's in an email tool or if it's on the site or it's on the checkout right when you're about to leave, like really look at them and make sure, like, our most common product, like, what are we suggesting? Is it actually something that is complementary, or is it an equally priced alternative product? Because you sort of lose both on the fact that, like, they're not buying it, right? So there's no increase in average order value. And number two, you're not helpful either.
Well, what's your products with that mindset too?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, well, we have this and we have this. And it's like, you should be creating your product SKUs based on what
round them out.
Complementary. And then, you have your hero product, and you break even on that, but you know that you're going to get the pillowcase for the pillow, and you're also going to get the whatever, and it works well together. So you have control of what you create. So, like, going even at a higher level, like, create products to make that easy. But I think the tonality is huge in that, right? Like, I always want someone reading the handwritten copy, the email copy, and then being able to envision, like, whoever that is from, right? One, it should be from somebody. It shouldn't be from the company. And they should be able to envision that person going, oh, they ordered that. Oh, this is their first order. Oh, they probably do need this, right? Like, that tone and that feel should come out through the message. So, like, some copy that we often implement in the handwritten letters, although, like, we don't want to sell too much on the first touch, so this might even be the second touch, but it's like, hey, I was just like looking through our orders, and I realized this was your first time ordering and you got the X. I wanted to write you a quick note because if this is your first time ordering, you might not be, up to speed on that, creatine mixed with L-glutamine really benefits by stacking these two together as an accelerant. So I just wanted to give you that heads up. If you do have any questions, you can shoot me an email and we can put an order in for you, or, you can find that on our website, right? So, like, that's much different than, like, dear valued customer, from whatever supplements team, like, we are so thrilled that you're a new customer and wanted to give you 20% off on buying the creatine. It's like, if you're going to write, like, handwritten letters are an amazing tool, right? But it's also like email. You can have good email copy. You can have bad email copy. You can have a good cold call. You can have a bad cold call. So, like, just make sure that, like, across all channels, handwritten letters, email, SMS, like, I really would try and, like, humanize that tonality and make sure that tonality could be read as a one-to-one communication where they can envision that person identifying you as a customer and making a suggestion or recommendation. If it feels like a blanketed message because they can't envision that writer identifying them, that's where things start to break down and people just hit delete, and you may see high open rates because they open it and then read a line immediately. No, it's not. So
one thing I add tactically too, when you're suggesting products for folks like, I did this and I'm not seeing any value, right? If they've ever ordered something for $50, they've crossed your shipping threshold, and you're suggesting something $6, and they're like, and you're going to charge me $8 to ship it, and it's going to take 5 to 8 days to get there. Like, I'm gonna pass for now. Super easy win is like, hey, saw you bought this, beginner guitarist. I definitely think you should have this. Here's a code. You get free shipping. Like we've already shipped your order. I can't throw it in there because we try to ship within an hour or whatever, some extreme customer success threshold. But hey, here's a way that we will just ship it for free. We want you to have it.
Yeah.
You could do single use codes, so it can't be like ripped off and put everywhere and blasted.
You don't have to make money on everything, especially a $6 product. Like if you're breaking even on that and they're like, wow, that was really nice, that's great. And by the way, like I feel, because I've heard people receive it this way, like that was so like perfectly granular, the way you were talking about like you were like making sense of a situation and selling them that way. I saw this, but I can't put it in here. So for that reason, I'm going to give you free shipping. That's not just like, because you're a valued customer, I want to give you free shipping and X, Y, and Z. It's like logistically, I'm doing what's right because I'm not able to do it in retrospect.
Yeah.
And that type of language can still be automated. That doesn't need to, we're not saying send one-to-one emails, but you need to write them in a way and use the dynamic keyword insertion in a way where it still feels like that person identified you, teed up the value and how they're helping based on a real life situation. So I really like the way that you put that, Ryan, and just wanted to highlight, like, you can make that automated in your text, emails, handwritten letters. We don't need to be going as far as Sweetwater and calling every single person. That's great. I don't think a lot of people are going to take that step. I think handwritten letters are the best way to invoke that wow factor from a scale and automation standpoint, but also just breaking that down across other comm channels is going to be a huge lift for you guys.
Yeah. James, I've gone well over the time I asked for you. Any sort of closing words or things that you want to touch on before we wrap up today?
I would say closing words are, making customers feel special. It works for a dent company, like you said. It works for a dog food company. It works for the Ritz-Carlton. And I say this with all due respect, but as business owners, we obviously put our businesses on a pedestal, and your business is not unique in the sense that it will benefit from invoking that wow factor. And essentially, so whatever way you do that, do it somehow, right? And we did line something up for you guys. So if you want to use handwritten letters to do that, normally, for a handwritten letter, you're talking $3.04, automated, triggered out the door. That is a folded greeting card with all the handwriting. You can design whatever you want on there. Folded or a greeting card envelope, all the handwriting literally feels like something that came from your grandmother, and will trigger out automatically from your Shopify store or whatever system you're using. You can use N8N or Zapier to get it in there. If we don't have an app for it, so normally that's like 304. For you guys, we got a discount code set up with Reversion, and that's going to give you pricing of $2.25 per unit, which is fantastic. So if you go to scribenurture.com/register and you use the coupon code Reversion, you can get that discount. And don't overcomplicate it. It's pretty simple. Just get them a thank you letter, invoke that wow factor, make your communication a little bit more humanized and one-to-one, and you're going to see a lift. That's what the data shows. Give it a little bit of time. Don't try it for a week and stop. Commit.
Cool. Thank you, James, again for the time. Thank you, everyone that joined. This will be, it's all recorded. It's on YouTube. It's on LinkedIn, so you can share it. If one person asks, is this going to be available? They want to send it to their retention manager. Yes, these links will be available wherever you watched it today. They'll just continue to live there. I want to thank everybody again for joining us. James, again, thank you for your time. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you all next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ryan. It was fun.
Yep.